Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. It's a beautiful sunny day here in Southern California. And I want to thank you for joining us both live and on demand, I guess they call it, for our final webinar of the year. Can you believe that we are about 3 weeks from the end of 2022? Hard to believe. And this is our 6th webinar. We've done 3 Business of Dentistry webinars. And we've done, this is going to be our 3rd webinar on transitions. So in our transition series, the first webinar we did was with attorney Pat Wood, talking about the legal aspects of transitions. The second one that we did was with myself and Dr. Bogdan Madurowicz, and we worked together in our dental brokerage business. And that was on all the basics for buyers and sellers. And today we're going to kind of close the loop with dental consultant extraordinaire Kathleen Johnson. Kathleen has been in dental consulting 35, 40 years. I don't even know how long. But one of the things that she specializes in, and here's our contact information, is Kathleen has done over 1,000 easily management due diligence engagements for doctors. So if you're buying a practice and you want to look at the records, you want to look at the hygiene department, you want to look at the how much uncompleted treatment is there, what are the opportunities, what are the good, the bad, and the ugly from an operational standpoint of the practice, as opposed to what a CPA does, which is to look at the actual numbers and how profitable it is. That's what we're talking about today, is the operations. And Kathleen has got some great information. And what we want to do today is we want to talk to both, we have sellers, prospective sellers, and buyers of dental practices on this call, on this webinar. So for sellers, what we want to do is we want to tell you, okay, you're getting ready to sell your practice. What is going to make your practice more attractive to a buyer? And what is going to make it worth more money? Because if you have management systems that are terrible and you do the things that Kathleen talks about that maybe you shouldn't be doing, buyers are less likely to buy your practice or might offer less money. Buyers, on the other hand, we are going to teach you, Kathleen's going to teach you today about what is it that you need to look at, whether you have someone like Kathleen come in and look at the management reports and the whole management system, or you have someone else, or you have do it yourself. What should you be looking at? And she's got some really great actual case studies from several practices that she's evaluated. So I'm real excited about our program today. So a couple of things I want to cover before I turn the program over to Kathleen. First of all, I want to share with you, if you don't listen to my podcast, we publish twice a month. It's called The Art of Dental Finance and Management with Art Wiederman, CPA. We would love for you to subscribe. We cover every single topic that you can think of in the area of dental finance and dental management. We talk about financial planning. We talk about taxes. We talk about all kinds of stuff. In fact, our next podcast that's coming out is next Wednesday, December the 14th. And I'm going to be talking with Mel Schwartz, and we're going to be talking about year-end tax planning. And by the way, doctors, if you haven't met with your CPA, this is the time to meet with your CPA to see where we can save some money. We have, all we do at our CPA firm here at Eide Bailey in the months, from October 15th to December 31st is literally, we're on calls every single day with our clients, trying to find ways to cut their taxes, equipment purchases, retirement plans, putting your kids on the payroll, putting your goldfish on the payroll. No, maybe not your goldfish, but things like that. So please listen to the podcast. We just passed our 4-year mark of doing the podcast. Okay, Stacy, is that the only slide that we have for me, I think? Yeah, so go ahead and leave the contact information up. So if you guys want to get our contact information, this series of webinars, number one, the first 5 and this one will be available on our YouTube page. And as Stacy said, if you want to watch it again on demand, and for the folks that are watching on demand, you'll all get a link to it. And if you didn't register for the other ones, you can go to Eide Bailey's YouTube page and you can find every one of them that we've done. So this will be the last one that we do for this year. These dental webinars have been, for lack of a better term, they've been promoted and sponsored, and they put the word out by the 8 local wonderful dental societies that we have here in Southern California. I know we have people from all over the country watching today, but I want to thank the 8 executive directors of the dental societies who have been so supportive of our Business of Dentistry and Transition webinar series for the past 2 years. And those would be Leah Deshian from the San Gabriel Valley Dental Society, Greg Orloff from the Los Angeles Dental Society, Kurt Thornton, I'm sorry, from the San Fernando Valley Dental Society, Michelle Schneider from the West Los Angeles Dental Society, Kristen Navina from the Harbor Dental Society, Laura Peterson from the Tri-County Dental Society, and from the Santa Barbara Ventura Dental Society, Linda Lacuzna. Want to let you know that we're setting up our some live seminars for doctors to help them to be successful for 2023 through the California Dental Society, California Dental Association, and we'll be doing them in Southern and Northern California, and we'll get that information out to you as they come on. One last thing I want to share with you, which I've been talking about on every single one of these webinars. If you haven't applied for the Employee Retention Tax Credit, that's a credit that can get you up to as much as $26,000 per employee for 2020 and 2021. If you had a greater than 50% reduction in your collections of your dental practice for the second quarter of 2020 versus the second quarter of 2019, or a 20% reduction from any one of the first 3 quarters of 2021 versus any one of the first 3 quarters, comparing each quarter, like the first and the first of 2019, you can get significant amounts of federal tax credits under the Employee Retention Tax Credit rules. I want you to be very careful. There are many unscrupulous companies out there that have set up specifically to fraudulently take advantage of these rules. You may very well have received a phone call from them because they get lists of physicians, dentists, auto repair shops, restaurants, every business that they can get, because there's a ton of money. They charge 25 to 35% of your credit. And if they are calling you and telling you that, oh, because of the fact that you had to social distance and you couldn't use all your operatories, you qualify, I would be very, very careful. If you have any questions about whether you qualify for the Employee Retention Tax Credit, there's my contact information. We've done over 125 cases just on dental practices. Eide Bailey has done probably upwards of 500 to 1,000 for all kinds of businesses. And we have gotten tax credits of north of $5 million for our dentists. I mean, there's a lot of money here, and it's legal if you do it correctly. All right, let's go to Kathleen's PowerPoint, and I'm going to bring Kathleen on. Kathleen Johnson, I'm very proud to say, is a dear friend of mine. She's been a dental consultant for, how long have you been a consultant?
40 years.
40 years, my goodness. That's about as long as I've been a dental CPA. And again, I've known Kathleen for most of that time. And Kathleen and I share a passion, and that is baseball. And Kathleen is a very happy camper right now. So I want to apologize in advance for any of you who are fans of the American League East. That would be Boston, Baltimore, Toronto, etc. Because Kathleen is a New York Yankees fan through and through. Her dog's name is Jeter, and she is a very happy camper right now because I believe your MVP, Aaron Judge, just signed a 9-year, $390 million contract. Yes. So you're a happy camper about that, right?
Oh, yes.
And I used to have, I had season tickets to the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, and I would always get one Yankee game, and sometimes I would take Kathleen, and sometimes my son Forrest would take her. And so we have shared the passion of baseball and Yankees and all this stuff. And we actually did a webinar when we were doing live webinars, and we had Kathleen come on, and I came on wearing a Boston Red Sox cap, and she didn't talk to me for a year. So anyway, Kathleen, welcome today.
Well, thank you. I'm excited about this.
So we are talking, as I mentioned earlier, to dentists about due diligence in the management context if you are buying or selling a practice. And like I say, folks, what we want to do is we want to show you from a buyer's perspective and from a seller's perspective what you should be looking at, because sellers, you want to get the maximum value for your practice. And the way you're going to do that is to make sure that not only your accounting records and your profitability are really top notch, but that all of your systems, because somebody like a Kathleen Johnson is probably going to come into your office and go ahead and take a look at what's going on. So with that said, Kathleen, I'm going to turn this over to you. And folks, what we're going to do here is if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A and I will monitor those and we'll kind of pop them in as we go along. And Kathleen's not only got some great information, but some great case studies. So Kathleen, with that, I'm going to stay on and I'm going to kind of pop in as I need to or feel like I want to make a comment, but the show is all yours. So folks, you're in for a lot of great information.
Thank you. I'm ready to go. We'll go to the next slide. So, are you getting ready to prepare to sell? I'm going to go over the role of the seller, the role of the buyer, the due diligence protocol, and realizing your dreams, smoothing out the daily grind. Next. All right, know your role as seller. You want to get your team together. You might want to have a consultant, definitely a CPA, and definitely an attorney. Be prepared to show your practice. Is your team aware of the sale? And I tell this to doctors all the time. A lot of times you're not telling your team, which is good. I mean, a lot of doctors don't, but you're asking for reports that you have never requested before.
Yep.
And when I've done evaluations, after the evaluation, I've had team members say, after the doctor bought the practice, we knew he was selling the practice. He was asking for reports he never asked for before. So you got to be careful with that. Next.
Now, Kathleen,
Okay.
I want to jump in. Sometimes I will actually send Kathleen, because again, I do brokerage. There are sometimes that the doctors don't even know how to get into their management reports.
Right.
Gee, you've never seen that. So if you've never done that, or if you don't want to tip off your front office, and Kathleen, we'll have people who will say, oh my God, if I ask for it, just like you say, they're going to know. You know, you might consider sending someone in who knows Dentrex, knows EagleSoft, knows Open Dental, or whatever you're using to pull those reports for you. And folks, I want to make one more comment about your mannerisms. When you are getting ready to sell your practice, you have to do everything you can to make it business as usual. If you start taking lots of cell phone calls in the middle of treatment, if you start behaving different, they're going to figure it out. So it's got to be business as usual.
Oh, yes, for sure. Now, here is something that most doctors don't do. Have you reviewed your accounts receivable lately? Are your accounts receivable accurate? Or are there adjustments that need to be made for PPO or HMO plans? Are there overdue, uncollectible balances that should be written off? Do you have outstanding credit balances? And we're going to go into that with the case studies also, because I find a lot of credit balances. Next.
So Kathleen, you always see a lot of times that doctors don't close out their receivables monthly, right?
No, and we're going to talk about that. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, meeting potential buyers, try to be accommodating, be ready to answer questions. I mean, I've had doctors that couldn't remember the name of their software. And so I'm not kidding. So you want to be able to answer questions, know what you're selling. Take notes on what you thought of the potential buyer. Next.
And when it comes to, Kathleen, when it comes to buyers, I mean, remember, you need to sell your practice and get them excited. It's not like, when the housing market was really hot here in, well, all over the country, you'd have 30 full price offers in a day. Well, that's not how it works in this world. You have a limited pool of people who want to buy a practice, who want to buy your kind of practice and want to buy it in your location. So, you need to sell yourself, folks.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Now, the role of the buyer, define the practice of your dreams. Location, where do you want to practice? Do you really know where you want to practice? How far from home? Do you want fee-for-service, PPO, HMO, Denti-cal? Know what you want. Do you want to be in a professional building, freestanding building, strip mall or shopping center, or does it even matter? So you want to know these things before you start looking. Next.
Kathleen, what do you like? Do you have a preference as those types of buildings?
No, it depends on the community.
Okay.
Like if you're downtown LA, you're going to be in a professional building, and there's a million of them. It just depends on where you're located.
Okay.
Small town, freestanding building is good. Yeah.
Right.
Now, surround yourself with the right people. And you want a lender, how the different programs work, and the questions to ask, prepayment penalty, how interest is accrued, points, and closing costs.
And in the last webinar, we had Justin Klingshirn from Bank of America talk about this.
Oh, really? Oh, good.
Yes, we did. So we have that on the last webinar we did, if you want to review that, folks.
Yeah, that would be very good. All right, you want a consultant with dental experience who will do an on-site or remote detailed evaluation. She or he will verify the production, collections, new patients, and visits by month for 2 years and year to date for the previous 4. Not everybody does it by month, but I'm real big on that.
And you're going to talk about kind of how you do an evaluation as we go along here, right?
Oh, yes, for sure.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, next. Get on the brokers lists. Find someone whom you are comfortable and realize that no matter what information they share with you, the ultimate responsibility is yours to do the due diligence. The broker gets the information from the seller, but doesn't go in like I do to do an evaluation. So it's your responsibility to do the due diligence, to verify everything.
Yeah, it's buyer beware, folks. And again, we tell buyers, listen, if you're not going to hire a CPA or you're not going to hire an accountant, we've even had some people who haven't hired attorneys. I write an email to them and say, we strongly recommend that you hire these professionals, because at the end of the day, you don't want to come back and find out that they're saying that you misrepresented. Well, anyway, we made all this available. We recommended you use this person and you didn't.
Right. And that's not something you learn in dental school.
Nope. You don't learn any of this stuff in dental school.
No.
No.
Yeah. So you want to get out and see what's on the market. Keep notes of what you have seen. Next. Okay. What is the reason for the sale? Is it retirement? The doctor's moving out of the area, health issues, etc. What is the reason for the sale? Is there an associate? Does the seller have another practice? How many miles apart? These are important things to know. Next.
And the first question, Kathleen, if there's an associate, is why isn't the associate buying the practice?
And I've got that on here coming up. Yes,
okay.
Very true. Now, fee for service. A true fee for service is one fee schedule, no insurance assignment of benefits accepted, patient pays at the time of service, insurance is billed as a courtesy. So the insurance check goes to the patient because the patient pays for everything up front. That type of practice, you're not going to find many of anymore. And you're going to find some practices where it's only focused on insurance, and we'll talk about that. Traditional insurance, no contracts with Delta or any other plans, collect your usual and customary fee. So traditional, you're willing to bill for the patient and only collect the copayment ahead of time. and then the insurance check will come to you. There aren't too many of those, but there's a few. Now, what if the seller is only contracted with Delta Premier? When you, next slide. When you sign up, you're not going to be able to just be Premier. So what percentage of the practice is Delta Premier? Why is that important? So what I try to do, if we have no way of knowing where in the computer how many people are Delta Premier, what I'd like to do is see the 1099s from Delta, from all of Delta's payments, and see how much income is coming from them. That's not your total income. So you're going to have the Delta Premier checks, and then we got to figure out approximately what the patient share is and what percentage of the income is Delta Premier, because that's going to go down. Because when you buy the practice and sign up for Delta, you're going to have to take the PPO also.
So Kathleen, let me ask something about that.
Sure.
In my experience, 20 to 40% of most general dental practices that are not all HMO or that are insurance that have Delta, 20 to 40% of the patients in most of the general practices I see are patients with Delta insurance. Does that sound about right to you?
Yes.
Okay, so from a very high level, it's my experience that the difference in the fee schedule, and it's all over the board, but somewhere in the 20 to 30% range is going to be the drop. So in other words, you might be at 90% of UCR on Delta Premier, but if you go to the PPO, it might be around 60%. Is that about right, that based on what you've seen?
It's close to 30% drop.
Right.
Yes.
So if 30, so doctors, just as a very simple frame of reference, and every practice is different, and buyers, the seller is not going to, if you ask the seller, well, what percentage of your patients are Delta? We're not going to tell them, because we don't want to give you wrong information. That your consultant, Kathleen, needs to go into the software and do that. Right. Because it takes some work to figure out what percentage. We don't know. But if 30% of your practice is Delta, and the haircut's going to be 30% when you go from Premier only to the PPO, that is basically 9% of your revenues, right? Right. So you're going to lose, if you have $1 million practice, you might lose $90,000 in revenues. So just that's the math that you need to do, because I'm required by law, since I'm a CPA, to do math on these webinars. So there's my math for the day, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so that's what you're looking at. So, but this is a big deal, right, Kathleen?
It is a very big deal. Now, here's the other thing. The doctors that are only Delta Premier, they're Delta patients. Most of them today are the Delta PPO. But because the doctor is only Premier, the patient has to pay the difference between the PPO fee and the Premier fee.
Right.
But when you sign up to be a provider for Delta, you're going to have to take the PPO. So all those patients that have been coming to the practice that are PPO, you're getting paid PPO fee. Which is
98 to 99%. See, Delta would love to sell their Premier package. It's a very profitable product for them, but nobody's buying it in this economy.
7% of the sales were Premier.
Is it 7%? I mean, it's very low.
Yeah. I met with some of the people from Delta a year ago, and they said just 7% of the sales was Premier.
Right. And yeah, so again, it's a thing that the buyers need to take into account and evaluate, and then that's their decision as to what they want to do.
Absolutely, yes. Now, PPO plans have various fee schedules depending on the PPO, and the patient pays the estimated copayment. Now, if you're not a PPO provider, you can charge a UCR. HMO plans, they have copays, limitations, and exclusions. Do you have experience with HMO plans? If you don't, I wouldn't recommend you become a provider for an HMO. Because if you don't have the experience, you have to upsell a lot of things to make money.
Yep.
Now, Medicaid or Denti-cal, I don't recommend that either. Next. Okay, plan transfers, no, you must get credentialed. So if you're buying a practice that has PPOs and you're going to be a PPO provider, then it could take 8+ weeks to get credentialed. But what I tell doctors all the time is, even if you're not credentialed, you could bill the PPO, but you want to honor the PPO fee schedule, not bill UCR and then discount it. That would be fraud, because you're not a provider. So you bill the PPO fee that you told the patient you would.
Yeah. Now, Kathleen, there's a real dilemma with this situation. You and I both know this. Theoretically, not theoretically, actually, what the insurance company is going to say is, the day you buy the practice, if you're not credentialed, you're not a provider, right?
Right.
So theoretically, you are an out-of-network provider from the
Right.
date that you buy the practice, because to get credentialed before you buy the practice, the team's going to find out what's going on. There's all kinds of stuff, and it's just too busy. So, that's something you need to talk to your consultant, your attorney about. But the insurance company is going to, the rules are basically that the day you become an owner, if you are not credentialed with any insurance, you are an out-of-network provider. I just want to make that point so that we don't say, well, gee, you can just keep using the buyer. You don't worry, just keep using the seller's number until you get credentialed. That is not, that is also not, I'm not an attorney, but that's not legal and not right. So, but it's an ethical dilemma is what it is.
And here's another thing. If you're not a provider for Delta, you're going through the credentialing process, the check goes to the patient.
Right.
Other PPO plans, you'll get the check sent to you. But again, if you tell the patient you're going through the credentialing, but you're going to honor the PPO fees, then those are the fees you bill. Because you can't bill UCR and discount it afterwards. That's called fraud. You can bill UCR when you are credentialed with them, and they're still going to pay on the PPO fees. But if you're not credentialed, you bill the fee you're charging. Okay?
Yep.
Now, as I said before, you can no longer choose just Delta Premier. And the difference between them is, as we talked about 30% lower fee. So what are your choices? What do you want to do? Some doctors will go ahead and become a Delta PPO provider to not lose the patients, which I'm in agreement with. Because you could build a relationship and then somewhere down the line, you're not happy with those fees, you could drop it. But walking in the door, if you're not a provider and you're going through the credentialing process, you're going to lose some patients. They're going to want to go to a provider. Now, if you're going to be signing up for HMO or Denti-cal, it could take several months. They take forever to get everything done.
And everybody knows, Kathleen, that Delta just dropped Premier fees here in California between 5 and 10% in the last month. So
yes,
I think I've been talking to people, and I've talked to people at higher up places in dentistry. I mean, Delta Premier is probably going to go away at some point. I mean, you and I have talked about this for years. I thought it was going to be gone by now, but it is ultimately through attrition, through practice transition, through doctors going out of network, making those choices. So that's just something that doctors, you need to be aware of down the road. If you are a PPO provider already, then there's really no issue, because your practice has already got that baked in, that lower PPO fee. So that's important for the buyers to look at.
I don't know if I told you, but Delta refers to me as Mrs. Trouble, because I say what the doctor can't. And I told them the reason they're doing the things they're doing is to compete with the other PPOs.
Yeah.
And they said, why do you say that? I said, it's showing what you're doing. And then dropping the fees again now. I mean, they're competing with PPOs.
Yeah,
the business.
It's an issue that everybody just needs to evaluate on their own situation. Okay.
And when I started in dentistry, insurance was not an issue. The fact that you billed the insurance, people thought was wonderful that you did that for them. But
It's a
then
different
because of
world.
big companies, they trained patients to focus on insurance.
Yeah.
No, next. Okay. Do you want a one-hit wonder versus an established act? Now, what I want to say about that, I have done evaluations on practices as beautiful as the one in this picture, but their numbers were awful. But the doctor was go, oh, I love this practice. Look at this practice. I think I want to buy it. And I go, well, you're going to have a lot of time to spend doing other things because there's not a lot of patients here. But look at the practice. Isn't it beautiful? I said, yes, for a half empty practice. Yes. And I tell them, you want a beautiful practice, but you want to see the patient retention, and we'll go through the numbers in a little bit. So you don't want just beautiful, you want a good, solid practice. So value patient flow over spot and pretty. Next.
And what one comment for sellers, don't spend hundreds of thousands of dollars upgrading your facility a year before you're going to sell, because you will not get that money back.
Right, for sure.
Yep.
Okay, now, doctor, when you're doing the chart review, you're looking at new patients. Are they getting full mouth x-rays, comprehensive exams? Is the diagnosis conservative or aggressive? I've gone in offices where not all the new patients get a full mouth x-ray, and they're not emergencies, but they just get a few x-rays. Now, are the patient forms consents, health histories, updates, financial agreements, and HIPAA forms? The other thing I find, not every practice is really good about having the patient update their health history. And you need to. Perio charting and perio treatment. Is it diagnosed and treated, or do they do the perio chart but ignore the perio? I find that a lot. Is the documentation good? Is it thorough? Next. How many years has the patient been with the practice? Continued care recall appointments, are they doing them? Are you seeing a lot of redos? Treatment acceptance and financial agreements signed and dated. Are they consistently collecting patient copays? And I check that when I do the evaluation. And I find, and we'll go through some of the cases after this, but we'll find that not everybody is collecting copays.
Kathleen, is there a
Yes.
way in the software that you can tell, run a report and say X% of the patients have been with the practice over 5 or 10 years? Is there anything in most of the softwares, or can you not find, is that not available?
You can't find it that way, but what I look at is the income from insurance. And
Okay.
if most of the income is coming from insurance, they're not collecting copays.
And if there's a lot of redos and remakes, Kathleen?
I don't find a lot of them, no.
Okay, but if there are, then that buyer is going to have to deal with all of that.
Absolutely.
And if the seller is moving out of the area, you know, that's something, again, we want you buyers thinking about this stuff. And not collecting copays is,
Fraud.
Kathleen, fraud, illegal, go to jail.
Right.
I've actually turned down 2 dental practice sales that have been very nice commissions for me because I found out that the seller was not collecting copays. I will not, absolutely not deal with it.
Right.
That is fraud.
It's just crazy. And I evaluated a practice one time after the doctor bought it because he didn't have it evaluated, but he was having a problem. And the selling doctor never collected a copay, but to get the money she wanted, let's say the wife came in for treatment, husband was not a patient, she would also bill the husband's insurance for treatment she never did on the husband, so that she would collect the money she wanted.
That's double, that's fraud. That's double fraud, right?
Double fraud, yes.
Double, yeah. And the other thing, folks, is buyers, if the seller's not collecting the copays, now you become the owner and you say, well, wait a minute, I have to collect it. It's legal. That's what I have to do. And the patient, Mrs. Smith, comes and said, wait a minute, doctor, buyer, the seller never made me. What are you pulling here? I'm going to another dentist.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that when I've done evaluations. Yeah.
Way to destroy a practice.
Oh, yeah. So next. All right. What effect would it have on the practice if you're starting to collect the co-payments. You're going to lose the patients.
Yeah.
And
So-
should you continue to write off the co-payments, which is considered overbilling and fraud? And what happens when you
No.
start to ask a patient to pay their co-payment? Will you lose the patients? Yes. And the story I'll tell you is, this was a practice in a high-end area, and they didn't collect the co-payments. And when the buyer bought the practice and started collecting the co-payments, the patients were telling the buyer that he was aggressive and that all he could think about was money, and they never had to pay co-payments before because the seller knew how to bill insurance. And it went on and on and on, and he was losing patients like crazy. But if he continued to write off the co-payment the way the seller did, that's fraud.
Yeah, they
You
put people
don't.
in jail for this stuff, folks.
Yes, and could lose their license. Okay, next. Now, active patients. This is one of the biggest problems I find in evaluations. You can't depend on the computer stated number of active patients as being correct. I find them overstated at least 70% of the time, as they do not update the patient's status. So when I'm training people, I tell them, if your patient is not coming back, passed away or whatever, you make them inactive. An active patient is one that has been seen at least one time in the last 18 to 24 months. So how do you know the real number? The good thing about EagleSoft and Dentrix, they have a separate report for active patient count. So I can get the true number of patients seen over that period of time. And then if they don't have a good software that tells us the active patients, I evaluate the hygiene recalls. Okay.
Yeah, and that's a source of, sometimes a source of lawsuits we've seen. And you really need buyers, you need to lean on your consultant to look at active patients, and someone like Kathleen or other folks that do this work will absolutely run that report based on what they're looking for. And sellers, you want to make that, if you're a year or two out, maybe get with your Dentrix or EagleSoft trainer and make sure that you know that once a month you're updating status. A patient dies, a patient moves, you inactivate them because they will continue to show as an active patient, and you overstate that number, that's not good.
And they'll be showing up on overdue hygiene and everything else. So you really
Right.
need to update it.
Right.
Next. Okay. When I'm doing the evaluation, I want the production by type, not by category. I don't want restorative and things like that. I break it down by procedure. So I'll know how many, if they're doing amalgam fillings, composite fillings, crowns, everything. I break it all down. I want to know the payments by type. That again will help me to know if they're collecting co-payments. So I want to know if it's credit card, insurance, cash, whatever it is. Now, here's a big one, adjustments by type.
Yep.
A lot of offices have had front office people steal money from them. And they would post an adjustment. They would get the payment, post the payment, and then put the payment in their wallet and then adjust it back on the software again. But the adjustment would be just adjustment. It wouldn't say what the adjustment was. It wasn't a senior discount. It wasn't, an advertisement or anything like that. It would just be credit adjustment. So it didn't tell you what it was. And doctors don't look at these reports very much. So they were pocketing money. I've done a lot of fraud cases. They were pocketing money and the doctor had no idea why he or she wasn't making as much money as they thought they would for the treatment they did. But they never really looked at the reports.
So Kathleen, let me have you put your, instead of your due diligence hat, your consultant hat on. As you're coaching doctors through your career, what reports do you recommend at the end of each day that that the owner doctor look at? What do they need to look at to compare things? How do you coach people on that.
Well, it depends on what it's called on the computer, but a day sheet showing the patients that were in the production, collections, adjustments, and the bank deposit. It's
Yeah.
very important to look at that every day.
And
And
the-
what
and
you
the
do with
adjustment-
that,
Yeah,
you
go ahead.
compare it to your schedule for the day.
And one of the things, doctors, is that inspect what you expect. We've finished, we work with doctors that, oh, I trust the front office. I don't have to look at what she does or he does or whatever. And that's a recipe for disaster. But if you selling doctor or buying doctor, when you buy this practice, if you let the front office person know, this is good business practice. I want to see what's going on. This has nothing to do with whether I trust you or not. But you look at it and look at the adjustments. And if an adjustment doesn't have a description, ask the person at the front office, look at the chart, look in the computer, because the more you're looking, the less likely that front office person is going to think that they can steal money from you. Does that make sense, Kathleen?
Absolutely. And that's why I tell doctors, you need to look at the reports every day. And again, the adjustments by type, there is no adjustment without a description of the adjustment.
Right.
And not every, and I shouldn't say not every office, most offices don't do that.
No. Yeah.
And
we
you're
do
leaving the
see
door wide open.
1 out of every 3 to 4 healthcare practitioners, that being both dental and medical, will be embezzled at some time during their careers. And the main reason is that the owner is not overseeing and monitoring and watching and inspecting. And that is 100% your right to do that as the owner of your business.
And here's the other thing. I tell the doctors all the time, always ask a question so they know you're looking at the report. Even if you don't need to ask the question on a daily basis, just say, oh, by the way, why did we do this such and such adjustment on Kathleen? Or, you'd say, oh, I thought Mrs. Smith was going to pay more than $50 or whatever. Just have one question every day so they know you're looking at it, and it keeps honest people honest. I'm real big on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next. Okay. Accounts, insurance receivable, and credit balances. Oh, I'm telling you, it is unbelievable how, and you'll see in some of the cases that we're going to go through, how the accounts and insurance receivables are out of control. I mean, I have one of the cases we're going to go over has, I think, almost $2 million in accounts receivable. And the reason I found that they weren't writing off the adjustments is because if they got audited by the insurance company, it would not show that they wrote off the copayment. It will show that they're having a hard time collecting.
Ruh-roh. Okay. And Kathleen, my rule of thumb is about 65 to 75% of 1 month's gross production should be in a general dentist's receivables. Is that about what you are looking for?
How much should be in the receivables?
65 to 75%. So if a doctor's doing 100,000 a month, their receivables should be 65 to 75,000.
Right, not any more than that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, the credit balances are another nightmare. They'll have a credit balance, patients paid up front, patient that didn't come back in, they didn't refund and money, and I don't understand why patients don't come in looking for their money, or they forgot to post correctly and the credit balance doesn't belong there because they did the work, but they didn't post correctly. So, oh my God, I went into an office and there was such a mess, and we're going to go through it when we go through these cases. So it's just nuts. Now, uncompleted treatment plans, accurate? Hardly ever. The reason for that, I recommend putting every treatment plan in the computer. And then when I schedule from the treatment plan, I schedule from the treatment plan and then post complete at the end of the day when the patient comes in. That way it takes it out of the uncompleted treatment because it's done. But when you're not scheduling and posting from the treatment plan, the work is done and is still in the uncompleted treatment.
So
I never
Kathleen,
trust
if they don't put in the treatment plan when the doctor makes the diagnosis, then it doesn't become part of this whole analysis of what's my case acceptance percentage and what's uncompleted, right?
Absolutely, right.
So, and that's the responsibility of the front office person?
Of course.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
I take that back. Some offices now, the assistant, when the doctor is diagnosing, is entering the treatment diagnosed into the computer.
Okay, and I guess it's just a matter of time. If you have a person at the front office that's overwhelmed, maybe that is something that the assistant can do as part of when they're turning the room over, they put in the treatment plan. I mean, that I guess it can do it either way, right? Assuming that you have an assistant who has the capability of doing that.
And yes, and I'm finding more and more with my clients, the assistants are entering the treatment plan.
Okay.
And then when she brings the patient up to the front desk, you know, to go over the financials and make the appointment, the treatment plan is already in there. The office coordinator will go ahead and present the financials. Patient accepts it. She makes the appointment. She goes into the treatment plan, takes the recommended treatment, puts it into the appointment, and it's all done. And that way too, you can see daily, weekly, monthly, how much you have on the books for production. So I can see tomorrow I've got 5,500.
And that's why that morning huddle is so important, because you can pull up on each of these patients, especially if you're using metric software like Dentimetrics, Dental-Intel,
right,
et cetera. You can pull up and say, okay, Mrs. Smith is coming at 10 o'clock for a composite restoration, a 2-surface composite restoration. And by the way, she's got other work that hasn't been done. And by the way, her husband hasn't been in. And by the way, her kids haven't been in. And they have a bunch of treatment that's been diagnosed. So the morning huddle. And Kathleen, you see a lot of doctors who don't do morning huddles?
yes.
Oh, that is just, that is losing money left and right.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So next. Okay. All right. What we're going to do is we're going to go to some of the cases now. So we can look at some of those cases and I can go over the detail of my evaluation. So we're going to switch to that.
Kathleen, can you, before we go into the individual ones, kind of walk through a 35,000-foot overview of a doctor hires you to do an evaluation?
Right.
What is it? Are you going to show what do you ask for, and then what steps are you taking? Are you going to get into like an overview of what you do, and then we'll get into the case studies? Is that?
Well, what I actually ask for?
Yeah. What do you ask for? What do you want to see?
I'm going to ask for, any up-to-date reports for the production collections, like year to date. And I'm going to ask for their P&Ls. I'm going to ask for the first page of the tax returns. I'm going to ask for information on each employee, hours worked, hourly rate, benefits, stuff like that. And usually, as far as the breakdown of the square footage and stuff like that, I'll usually get that from the broker if they have a broker that will give me the breakdown of location, square footage, number of operatories, so on and so forth. And then I'm going to look at the accounts receivable, the credit balance reports, new patient reports, referral reports. I look at everything. I'm like the FBI when I go in and check everything.
And then, so normally you'll go into an office for what, 3 to 5 hours and sit on the computer?
About 3.
3 hours, and the doctor should be there, right? The buyer?
They should be, but they don't have to be.
If
and
they are
I've been
there,
doing a lot remotely also.
okay, but should the buyer be going in and pulling charts and looking at charts? And I had somebody in the industry tell me that a buyer should go in, pull 10 charts, look at the diagnosis on those charts. I mean, look at the x-rays, but don't look at the diagnosis, do their own diagnosis and see if their diagnosis is congruent to what the seller's diagnosis was. Should they be doing stuff like that?
Well, yes, but not, you said 10 charts?
Well, I'm just saying pull, it could be 10, it could be
Oh.
50, whatever you want to pull, but just to get an idea if your treatment philosophy is similar to the
And that's
seller.
what I said earlier, is
Yeah.
it conservative or aggressive?
Right, right. Okay.
Yeah,
All right, go ahead and go into your case study.
all right, can we move it down? Let's see. Here we go. So this is San Gabriel Valley. This was done December the 4th, 2021. The practice is located in a busy strip center. Practice was established 29 years ago. Number of doctor days per week is 5. Hygiene per week is 0.
No hygiene?
No. Now, type of practice, cash, traditional insurance, and PPO. And who do they have working there? An office manager, front office person, a dental assistant, and an associate.
So the
So
doctor's
then-
doing the hygiene?
Yep.
Okay.
So here's the continuing care. As you can see, almost everybody's a prophy. If you look down at the root planning, it's hardly any. If you look at perio maintenance, none. I mean, this office, again, they don't have hygienists and the doctor is not focused on hygiene.
So
That is horrible.
yeah, and Kathleen, again, if I'm jumping ahead, I apologize, but the percentage of the hygiene production that should be in the 4,000 codes, I mean, you taught me this. What do you like to see?
30% of office production should be hygiene.
So in this situation, I've got 18 root planings comparing, let's forget the kids, 226, so that's 244. 18, that's like 5%. That's like
Yeah,
nothing.
can we lower the page down a little bit? Oh, we'll have to go to the next page. Here we go. All right, so the net average number of continuing care patients seen per month this year is 22. The lowest number I've seen for an office with an average of 11 new patients per month. I estimate the number of active patients to be under 600 based on the recalls. The hygiene department has room for improvement based on current productivity. A hygiene department should be producing 30% of practice production and is currently at 9%. Based on the fact that most patients in this practice are adults, the number of root plannings is very low and they do not do any perio maintenance. So the hygiene is useless in that office.
So this doctor who buys this practice, who knows the importance of, and you taught me this term also, non-surgical periodontal maintenance. I always give you credit for teaching me that term, right? So
non-surgical periodontal therapy.
Therapy, I'm sorry. Okay, see, I didn't even learn it correctly, right? So basically the buying doctor coming in now has a dilemma. They now have to start talking to the patient. And then the patient says, well, wait a minute, I've been coming to Dr. Jones for 30 years. Are you trying to sell me a bill of goods? What's going on here? I mean, that's a difficult transition, isn't it?
I'll tell you how to do it. And I've done it with many doctors is
Tell us.
You're the new doctor with the new, maybe with the hygienist or probably the doctor. And you say to the patient, you know, Kathleen, looks like you've got some, you know, deep pockets right now. So on your next visit, we're going to double check them again. So I tell them not to try to get them into the non-surgical perio the day they meet them, but on the next recall.
Okay.
Because if they try to tell them right away that this is what we have, the patient's trust is gone.
Yeah.
Because they've been going to Dr. X for 25 years.
And you know, another thing I like to talk about is to say, you know, Mrs. Smith, there's been a lot of new studies and new information that has come out in the last year or two or three, which is true about the connections, you know, the systemic connections between periodontal disease, heart disease, Alzheimer's, all this kind of stuff. And we have found it important to inform our patients of that. And I can't speak for what my predecessor did, but this is what we do. And we just want to make that information. If they choose not to do a root planing and keep having 6, 7, 8 millimeter pockets, you put it in the chart and you made the recommendation, right?
Right. And
Yeah.
here's the other thing. I teach my class I do at West Coast Hygiene School. I teach the hygienists how to communicate. If they're seeing a patient for the first time and they see problems that have been going on for a while, I teach them how to communicate with the patient so they build trust before they, scare the patient.
Yeah, and one other thing, doctors, if you're a buyer, if there is no hygienist, Kathleen, how many dentists who are buying practices buy them with the intention that they're going to do all the hygiene?
Very few.
Yeah, so you're going to have to, as a buyer, you're going to say, wait a minute, I've got all these patients. I want to build up a hygiene department. I now have to, and I don't want to do hygiene. So I'm going to have to put in a provision to hire a hygienist a day a week, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, which is going to reduce the profit, which is what you look at when you're talking to like Pam Chamberlain of our office, who does accountants due diligence. So that's another thing to think about.
Well, here's the other thing about having a hygienist. And what I teach a hygienist again how to communicate this. A hygienist can help get the patient motivated to accept the treatment the doctor recommended that they're thinking about waiting on. And they trust the hygienist because she's not looking to buy a new car. The doctor is. So, it works out. Having a hygienist is a good thing because they can support what you're diagnosing. They can support your treatment, and they build relationship with patients and get more patient referrals.
And buyers, one other thing I want to recommend that you ask when you're talking to the seller about their practice is, tell me about the hygienist's philosophy on root planings and non-surgical periodontal therapy. Do they believe in it? Do they take courses in it? And I had one practice that we sold where the doctor's spouse was the hygienist, and she absolutely refused to do anything in the 4,000 codes. And we told the buyer, and they bought the practice, and they thought they could fix it. And fortunately, the doctor's spouse retired. I mean, fortunately for that situation, because she held all the keys. And so you gotta ask these questions. Buyers, it's buyer beware. Ask as many questions. Ask the broker, ask the seller, because you have every right. And Kathleen, I've had brokers who have flat out come to me as a CPA and said, why are you asking this? There's 800,000 reasons I'm asking. That's the price of the practice that you're asking for. So I get to ask these questions. Do not hesitate. Don't be afraid, buyers, that if you ask the seller a question that they're going to get mad at you. You have every right to ask every question. If you don't, that's on you.
Yep. But I have to tell you, today, more and more hygienists are into the perio.
Good.
Yeah, it's really good.
Good.
Okay, so Dr. X is a contracted Delta Premier and Delta PPO provider. He's also contracted with all the other PPO plans on here. And he has an in-house dental plan. And now we go down to the accounts receivable. So as you can see, over 90 days is $956,542.95.
That's insane. Somebody's not doing this right.
Oh, I'll tell you about it. But anyway,
yeah, please.
Accounts receivable balance is $2,294,942. What's due from the patient is $983,000, and what's due from insurance is $1,311,507. And we'll get into more detail on that, but the credit balances are $548,540.90.
For a practice that produces $363,000 a year.
Yeah.
You're not just making this up, right? You're not just making this up to kind of entertain, right?
Right. Now, here's the other thing. So you're looking at the production and collections, insurance payment, patient payments, and you add those two together and then look at the bank deposits. So can we go down a little bit on this page?
Yeah.
To the next page. Okay, so the production has dropped by an average of $40,500 per month this year in comparison to 2020. Based on the current trend, the year could end with a drop in production of 486,000. New patients are down by an average of 4 per month. The bank deposits this year, just through September, are 193,000 more than what is posted on the computer. Okay, we'll go down a little bit on this one. Okay, now, if we go to 2020, they did 881,000 in production. And look at the collections between insurance and patients, and then look at the deposits. Deposits are more than what's posted on the computer again. So the drop in April, May, and June was due to COVID-19. The bank deposits are 279,000 more than what's posted on the computer.
Wow.
So you're really feeling good about the numbers, right?
Oh, I want to pay 150% of last year's gross, but I don't even know what last year's gross is.
All right, so now we're looking at 2021, the charges, the adjustments, insurance adjustments, and the net production. And then we're looking at patient payment, insurance payments, and then the total payments. And then if you look at 2020, the net production was 665, and they collected 376. 2019, the net production was 931, and they collected 551. Now, the Henry Schein practice profile shows the gross income for 2020, 504,000, 2019, 601, 2018, 651, which do not match the numbers above.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, so let's go down. So there's 2018 and 17. And you can see their numbers were better back then. So 2018 had the best production in comparison to 2017 and the following years, but the collections are just 65.6% of net production, which is terrible.
This has got embezzlement written all over it, doesn't it?
Yeah, the best collections was 2017. So now we're going to go down to productivity by type to see where they're making most of the money, which is not unusual. We got the bridge units, single crown, so crown and bridge is where they're making most of the money. Okay.
But they're not, yeah. Yeah.
Let's go
okay.
down. So after going through the reports I printed and my notes, I'm not feeling good about the practice as the numbers are all off. The accounts receivable and credit balances are a mess. In addition, a big drop in production collections this year. Needless to say, my client did not buy the practice.
Thank God for small favors, right? So, but the interesting thing is that most practices were up significantly comparing 2021 to 2020. And this one was actually down.
Yes.
So that tells you something right there, because, you know, obviously the pandemic year was I mean, when we look at evaluating a practice, we just throw out 2020. I mean, 2020 is just not a fair year.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. So fortunately,
anyway,
now
so
we have.
This report was 4 pages. My reports are usually 11 pages. I'm much more detailed, but I just cut it back to what we have to cover.
I'm curious, Kathleen, did you ever have an opportunity to ask the seller about all of these discrepancies and get any input from him or her?
He said, yeah, he said that he thinks that the front office is not good at posting things correctly. And I said, well, don't you look at this weekly or daily or monthly? He goes, no, he goes, I was making enough money.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah, so this was a disaster waiting to happen. Unfortunately,
he knew what was going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the next office.
Okay.
All right. Oh, this is interesting. This is LA County, a periodontal office. Okay. It was September this year. So the practice is located in a multi-tenant freestanding building with 5 equipped treatment rooms. The reason for the sale, the doctor is going to retire. The software he has is Gentrix, and all the treatment rooms are computerized. And there's the office hours. And you ready for this? He's a periodontist. with 2 hygiene days a week.
Oh my goodness.
Well,
Interesting.
you'll see why in a minute. Okay, type of practice, cash, traditional insurance, and Delta Premier. Up front, he's got the office administrator, he's got an implant administrator, 2 assistants, a front desk, 2 hygienists. Each hygienist works 1 day a week. I ran the practice advisory report. That's the one that gives you the true actual numbers of active patients. Seen over the last 18 months, 1,345.
Jeez.
Now, here we go. This is a perio office, right? January through September 15th, they did 411 trophies and 12 perio maintenance.
In a perio office?
Not even any root planing procedures, yes. Now, January through December 2021, 627 trophies and 14 perio maintenance. Now, I'll tell you why so many trophies are there. So even though this is a specialty periodontal office, they are billing patients and insurance for prophy, not perio maintenance. Basically, they're doing perio maintenance, but to lower the cost and to get 100% from insurance, they're billing it as prophy. I have never seen that before.
Yeah, but again, doctors, we understand that most of you are probably general dentists, but the point here is look at the management reports, look at these types of analyses to see what's going on.
And that's why I do all that deep checking.
Right.
And so the number of patients not on continuing care or past due, 3,145. So I'm saying they need to pay more attention to hygiene recalls. And again, when I first heard he only had 2 hygiene days a week, I was blown away for a perio office. I have consulted for perio offices with 2 to 3 hygienists working.
Yeah, and even in a general office, doctors, if you have a large amount of production, Kathleen, he's doing big procedures, he's doing quadrant dentistry, he's doing full arches, he's doing things like that, and he's got very little hygiene. I mean, that's an opportunity, isn't it?
It's an opportunity, but here's the thing with this one. You can get the patients back in, but you're supposed to be billing what you did. So you did perio maintenance, you bill perio maintenance.
Right.
Again, where is the root planning? I didn't see any root planning procedures. It was just, it was totally weird. So you can't take the patient from not having to pay for their hygiene visit, because now if you're billing perio maintenance, it's going to get paid 80%, you're going to pay 20%, and they're going to get upset.
But the amount of revenue that this practice is losing by not billing correctly and not showing a procedure, showing a 4910
Right.
instead of an 1110, I mean, it's a lot. It's a big number.
Oh, it is for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm saying here that you can no longer only choose to be a Delta Premier provider. Today, when you contract with Delta Premier, you are contracted with Delta PPO. The fees are approximately 25 to 30% lower.
Yep.
Okay, we're going to go down a little bit. Accounts receivable, 31,000. Credit balance is 38. And his production numbers and collections and credits and debits and ACs.
Doesn't look, yeah, but he's doing a lot of perio surgeries and bone grafts and things like that. Good. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Now the one that says Dr. Rent is subtracted because that's a doctor that rents 1 day a week or 2 days a month or something.
Okay.
So I subtracted that. We can go down. And so his actual net production is 1,107,000. And then there is his collections, his adjustments, debits.
This looks a little more normal than the last one you showed us.
Yes.
But you've got several more case studies. We got plenty of time, so you've got several more case studies. I want to get.
Oh yeah.
I'm looking forward
So
to
now,
those.
in 2021, let's see what he did there. So the average production per patient visit, $485.61, which is pretty darn good.
Okay.
Okay, go down. Okay, so there, some of the other, I like to go back for years, as many as I can.
Sure. Do you have a number for a general practice? Do you like, what would you say, average production per patient visit? Because that to me is a big number. Do you have a number you like?
Well, it depends on the practice and what kind of plans they're on.
Right.
And what they're actually charging. So, a fee for service practice, I'm looking at like at least 350,000. I've put 50,000.
No, I mean average production per patient visit. Like this one was 400.
About 350 in the fee for service, and then it would go down depending on PPO, HMO, or Medi-cal.
Yeah, and doctors, you got to look at your write-offs for PPOs, because you're going to assume those, and then it's a question of going out of network or staying in network, and those are decisions you'll have to make when you buy the practice.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that. All right, let's go down a little further. Okay, so these are the provider production.
Right.
And then go down a little further, production by type, to see where he's making his money. Surgical implants.
Yep. Okay, but at least we know where he's making his money. We know.
And that's why I take the time to look at procedures by type, not category.
And again, while this is not a general practice, we've got several other general practice evaluations coming up to show you. We're just giving you different things that Kathleen has done, and how detailed that you really need to look, so that you go into this thing and you write the check to buy the practice with your eyes wide open.
All right, let's go down. All right, so that was done September 27, 2022. And once again, my buyer didn't buy the practice.
And why? Just because there wasn't a hygiene program, or why didn't they buy?
I don't have the number in front of me, but the practice was overpriced, and he didn't feel good about it.
Yep. Okay.
All right.
All right.
It was supposed to be a perio practice, and we went through all that.
Okay,
but anyway,
so next victim.
South Orange County. Oh, this is my good one.
All right. All right.
So this one, I not only evaluated the practice, but I helped them get started. Okay. And the practice is located in a professional building. The reason for the sale was health issues for the doctor. And so, it was unusual hours, but where the practice was located, 7 to 3 is good hours. So their top referrals were walk-ins. Oh, by the way, the doctor worked 3 to 4 days a week, and hygiene days were 3 per week. So we can go down a little bit. The practice is fee for service. The doctor is not contracted with any PPO, HMO plans, which is excellent.
Yeah.
They have one front office person, and she's also an RDA, one RDA, and the doctor's wife helps at the front desk. The hygienist works Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Okay.
So 3 days of hygiene.
Right.
Okay.
Well, it's more now, but anyway, we can go down. So active patients seen over the last 12 months, 24 months. So the total number of active patients, 616. And when we get further down, I'll explain why it's low.
Okay.
Patients with insurance of 52%. Okay. So let's go down. And we are looking at the adult prophies. Group planning.
So now I'm looking at a nice periodontal maintenance program there, it looks like.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this doctor and his wife are fantastic. So the average number of continuing care patients seen per month is 58, which is low, but I'll explain to you why. The doctor is not a contracted provider for any PPO, HMO plans. The previous owner was contracted with PPO, HMO, and Denti-cal. So when this doctor bought the practice, he wasn't going to go with any PPO, HMO, or Denti-cal. So therefore, he lost all those patients. But he was going to build the practice with getting more fee for service, which he's done. So even though back then, the continuing care patients seen per month were 58, it's much better now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we are, and Kathleen, we are seeing, as a side note here, we are seeing lots and lots of doctors who are starting to change their relationship with insurance.
Yes.
They're starting after the pandemic and considering the fact that we have an 8% inflation and the cost to hire employees and the cost for dental supplies. I was just in a big high-end fee-for-service office the other day, and we talked about all that stuff.
Yeah.
And you've got to, you can't have a business model where you get on 70% of your patients get 60% of your UCR, but your costs keep going up. I mean, that business model doesn't work long-term.
Yeah.
So kudos to this doctor for recognizing it and going out of network. And doctors, I'm going to tell you, I've heard these stories over and over again. If you do it right, if you do choose to change your relationship with insurance, if you do it right, you can retain 80% plus of the patients. If you do it wrong, you'll lose a lot more. So,
and the other thing with this one, when I evaluated it when they were buying it, it was an area he didn't need to be on Medi-cal. I was shocked that the previous doctor was on Medi-cal.
right.
And everything else. And so when he said he wanted to be fee for service, I said, you're going to start off slow, but I think you can do it.
Right.
Yeah. And now
Okay.
we come down and look at his numbers. Let's go down a little bit. All right. So in 2021, look at the numbers he was doing a month.
Wow. Big, nice practice.
And they were collecting what they were producing. We'll go down.
Had a couple of months that were down, but maybe that's a vacation month or I don't know.
Yeah. And the average monthly production collections are down in comparison to 2020. It was due to the doctor's health problems.
Well,
And
and
that's why
also
he was selling it, because he's
20
only probably about 49 or something.
oh, okay, but yeah, still, that's still, even during the pandemic, that's really good. Obviously, April and May were the 2 months that most everybody were shut down, but look at when it came back and all the pent up demand, and yeah, wow, this is
And
great.
look at 2020.
Okay, yeah,
Go down.
yeah,
Okay, so 2020 was the most productive year since Dr. X purchased the practice, and yet they had a few slow months due to COVID-19.
I saw
Production
some of
collections
that.
have been increasing every year.
I saw a bunch of that, Kathleen, where people would be like dead in the water April, May, and they open up in June, and oh my God, thank God you're back open. I got to come in. I got to see you. And
Exactly.
yeah.
And then look at the production by provider. We'll go down
Okay.
and look at production collections in 2019 and 18.
Wait a minute. So is 2021 down? Is that, how many months is that? Because that looks like it's down by half.
Hold on, go back up. 2021.
Yeah.
It was,
I wonder if that's just a portion number of months
I think,
versus the whole year. Yeah.
well, let's go back up to 2021 and see
Go
what,
back to 2021. Yeah. Let's go back up. Go up a little further. Okay.
oh,
So,
yeah.
so it
through
could be
July.
because of his health issue that he's doing like half of what he was doing.
Well, yeah, because it went down, and this was
Right.
not a full year with the numbers being lower.
Oh, right. Oh, it's only 6 months. Okay.
Right.
It's like almost 7 months. Okay. That makes sense.
Okay, let's go back down now. Okay, so then go back down. Now, he bought the practice in 2016.
Right.
The practice was doing lower numbers even than that.
Wow.
And he brought it up over $1 million in no time.
Okay.
And he doesn't oversell. He's not that kind of doctor, but the patients just love him.
And that's the other thing. If you have a very conservative, or what we call a watch factory, not where they make watches, but, oh, we're going to watch this, we're going to watch that.
Oh, I hate
And,
that.
yeah. And I mean, I've had some of those that I've sold, and it's an opportunity, but you can't do it right away. I'll
No.
tell a story. Let me tell a quick story. We got plenty of time, Kathleen. I'm going to tell a quick story. So I had a practice that I sold, and the seller, this is exactly what happened. He'd been in practice 40 years, South Orange County, 5 or 6 operatories, I don't remember. And he had old equipment, and he was doing 400,000 a year. And I said, doctor, you are the nicest man on the planet. Your wife is the nicest lady on the planet. But with all due respect, why are you only doing 400 a year? I don't want to be insulting, but, and he says, Art, it's a great question. He told me, we're a watch factory. Watch this, watch that.
Oh, no.
He had 5 full price offers in one day. He turned them down. It was the 14th buyer, Kathleen, that bought the practice. And it was a young doctor, very, very good personality. And the husband and wife said, this is my buyer. I said, great. They offered, they bought the practice. Within 1 year, they doubled the practice. But I was getting calls from the front office saying, Art, number one, the doctor immediately spent $300,000 putting in a CEREC machine, digital x-ray, new chairs, everything else. And Art, this doctor is aggressively diagnosing and coming after everybody for crowns and quadrants of crowns. And a lot of people are buying because, they trust, but a lot of people are leaving this practice. And within 3 years, that doctor was out of business. They had to shut the doors.
No.
So the thing is, Kathleen, is when you have a gold mine, okay, you want to mine it, but you want to mine it slowly over a period of 1 or 2 years, because the new doctor, every patient's a new patient, right?
Oh, yes.
So you've got to gain their trust. And once you gain their trust, say, doctor, we're watching this tooth, we're really concerned, and a picture shows 1,000 words. And after 2 or 3 visits, you've gained the patient's trust. And then, I'd like to show you this and what this is going to do for you. And what if we don't, so that's the whole point of this whole thing. Of the other doctor in this case study wasn't doing very much. And apparently this new doctor, over a period of time, gained trust, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Okay, let's go down. And this tells you where he's making most of his money.
Okay, so.
And look at his average
What?
fees are not low.
Well,
But the
I happen
people
to
are
know the
willing to
city
pay
it's
it.
in, and it's a high socioeconomic town,
Yeah,
probably one of the highest in Orange County.
yeah.
So,
Go
okay,
down.
wow.
Okay, and then this shows you where the income is coming from.
Yeah.
And
We like this.
yeah, the payments by type show that it's not an insurance dependent practice. It's only 9% of total payments.
Right, and though this doctor you said was 100% fee for service, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you're going to get insurance payments because, as a courtesy, if the patient has insurance, they have to pay the full fee, but they will bill the insurance on their behalf and get the check, and the patient pays the difference, right?
Right.
Right. So that's why, if you're thinking, doctors watching this, why are there insurance payments? That's why.
Okay, let's go down.
Okay, and your opinion?
My opinion basically was, I believe there's even opportunity for growth in hygiene. So you have to conduct a patient reactivation campaign and set the overdue hygiene patients back on the schedule, or get the patients. So yeah, he did everything I trained him to do, plus he already knew a lot, and his numbers have gone even up from there.
So let's talk. This is I want to stop right here, Kathleen, and have you get a little more into detail. So I've got a seller who took a $500,000 practice that was taking PPO, HMO, Medi-cal, the whole thing, in a very high socioeconomic area. He got rid of all the insurance. Good move on his or her part, okay?
Right.
Came in, built this up, and was doing big cases. Now, so I'm assuming that seller had really good verbal skills, really good case presentation skills, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay, and then your buyer, who's a younger doctor, did they have the same skill? How were they able to not only maintain, but grow the practice? What are the things that you did in there and you recommended?
The seller also was willing to come in part-time and help him, show him how he presented cases. and talk to the patients and everything. And
Okay.
so he spent a little bit of time, as well as me helping at the front, and, you know, scheduling and stuff. The seller spent the time teaching the buyer in that neighborhood how to win the patients over.
Okay.
And never be aggressive.
Yep. Take your time. It's going to take a year or two, doctors. Remember that every single patient is a new patient. And I mean, we do this in the CPA practice. It's like, you know, when I'm talking to a doctor, I say, hey, how's your wife, Susie? How are the boys doing? How is your daughter doing? How's she doing in college? Oh, she works in an advertising agency. How's that? You build relationships with patients, and it's never about you, doctor. It's always about the patient.
Absolutely.
Because you want to always ask the patient about what's going on in their life, because, you know, they're going to build that trust instead of, okay, hello, Mr. Smith, you need 12 crowns now. Let's go.
Exactly. Yeah.
We've seen that too. Yeah.
Can we go on to the next case?
Yes. Next case.
Because we're down to what, half an hour?
Yeah, we're perfect. Yeah, we're
Okay.
great. But this is great stuff.
Good.
Because at the end, what we'll do, Kathleen, is we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about, we're going to hit specifically seller and buyer. I've got a couple of things I
Sure.
want to.
And I've got
Okay,
that
so-
at the end of my PowerPoint.
Right. Super.
All right.
Okay.
So now we've got North LA County. And I did this March of 22. The practice is located in Professional Medical Center.
Okay.
Doctor's retiring. Practice
good.
was established in 1993.
So 30, he's in practice almost 30 years.
Yeah, now the hours are 7:45 to 5:45.
Okay.
So we didn't want to do 8 to 6.
Okay.
Anyway, number of doctor days a week, 8. Number of hygiene days per week, 10.
Oh, nice. 10 days of
And
hygiene.
they're using the computer the way they should. And the production schedule, this was in March, it was for April was 62,000. Production schedule for May was 59,000.
Okay.
It's a cash, traditional, and PPO insurance office. He refers out complicated endo and some surgery. He has an office manager, 3 dental assistants, and a receptionist. So I ran the practice advisory report, and the number of patients seen at least one time over the past 18 months. Are you ready for that? 2,519.
That's huge.
Big number. Patients with insurance, 77%. Go down.
One doctor, Kathleen, or was there an associate?
Associate.
Okay.
Okay, and then here's your hygiene. And if you go down to the root planning,
Yeah, a little low.
a little bit low. The perio maintenance isn't bad at all.
But there's room for improvement there.
Oh, yes, because right now, hygiene production this year is just 17%. In 2021, it was 19%. Our goal is 30%.
So Kathleen, do you see a number like this? Is that because they're not probing enough? Is that because the hygienist is not making it a priority? Tell me why most doctors have low percentage in the 4,000 codes.
Because the doctors are not really thoroughly diagnosing the perio.
So it's on the doctor as far as you're concerned.
The doctor, if the doctor diagnosed the perio case, the hygienist could do it.
Okay. So what you're saying is that it's important for the doctor to buy into the hygiene program and to make it a priority. And this is another thing.
Yes.
Doctors, you've got to make your team understand where you're coming from a clinical standpoint.
Right.
If you say, listen, we are looking at supervised neglect unless we fully engage in periodontal analysis of every single patient, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's supervised neglect, folks, and it's lawsuits and it's just bad stuff. So, this is important, doctors, that maybe sellers, you ask the buyers, you ask the sellers, does the team believe in your treatment philosophy? What do you tell them? What do they believe? And then if the doctor's treatment philosophy, the buyer is different than the seller, then the buyer's got to think, am I going to be able to make this change with the team? So,
right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So anyway, so the doctor is a contractor PPO provider for Delta Dental and many other PPO plans. And I had a separate report showing all the plans.
Okay, so he's not a Delta Premier only provider. He's already got the PPO
Yeah.
fees. Okay,
But he's not with Denti-cal or HMO.
okay.
His accounts receivable are 242,234. And his current is 114, over 90 is 55, over 60 is 25, which isn't bad. His credit balances are 36,655. The largest one is 2002, going back to March 16th. The oldest is $9 going back to 2017.
Geez,
So
well,
anyway.
those are ones that probably should be with the state of California, but that's another conversation. But
So it appears that the co-payments are collected.
right. So, and doctors, shouldn't they be refunding credit balances pretty much as soon as they find out and get the monies in, because patients want their money back?
And you know what's weird is so many patients don't even realize they have a credit balance and don't ask for it.
Well, they should be refunding them, because at the end of the day,
Oh, I agree.
now, what is your well, anyway, let's keep going on this case study. I'm sorry. Go
Okay.
ahead.
All right. So now we're down to uncompleted, the credit balances are 36. Yeah. Uncompleted treatment plans from January 21 through March 22 is 1,107,000. Uncompleted treatment plans does not only include uncompleted treatment, but also alternative procedures.
What's
If
an
the
alternative
doctor-
procedure? What does that
Pardon?
mean? What does that mean, alternative procedures?
Where the doctor diagnoses one procedure and says to the patient, oh, we could do this.
I see. Okay, so it gives them choices.
Yeah. So anyway, so the productivity, January through March, 642,000, collections 546.
That's-
But they saw 73 new patients in 3 months. That's a lot.
So 25 new patients a month. I mean,
25.
that's a lot. Do we know what kind of marketing they were doing, Kathleen, or was it all word of mouth? Do you
It
remember?
was pretty much word of mouth and the PPOs.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, we can go down. All right, the average production per patient visit this year is $300.
Not bad.
All right, last year,
Did 2.5, collected 2.3, 25 new patient, 26 new patients per month,
right.
8,000 bit. Yeah, I mean, this is.
And
this is-
2021 was the best production collections in comparison to the previous 7 years.
Do you
down.
remember what the asking price was of this practice,
I
Kathleen?
don't.
Okay,
Okay, so go down. Okay, so there's 2020,
right. Okay, so 2020,
2019.
we would expect 20 to be down, but not down by that much. Okay.
No, and again, the average production per patient visit is in the 300s.
Okay. All
And
right, so
here's
he's
what I
doing.
like seeing, where I can see the tax returns, receipts, close to what's posted on the computer.
Right. But doctors, by the way, just be aware, the tax return and the accounting financial statements and the general ledger are never, ever, ever going to tie to the computer reports off of Dentrix or EagleSoft. That's
Right.
because when we do accounting, the collections are based on when the money goes in the bank. But when they do it on the computer, it's based on the day that the work is done, and not every practice deposits every day.
But
Most
as
of
you
them
can
don't.
see, these are not off by very much.
No. This looks like a pretty solid practice, Kathleen, doesn't it?
Yes, go down. So I
And
went
that
back,
includes the fact that we're contracted with the Delta PPO at the
Yes.
lower fees. Yeah, okay.
yes, and other PPOs.
And it's
Yeah.
been very solid, yeah.
Go
So,
down.
yeah. Okay, so let's see. So this is production per provider.
Right,
So I'm assuming 6 DDS is the owner,
yes,
okay, and 7 DDS is the associate. Yeah.
one associate, yes,
Yeah, and there's more than one associate. Okay.
yes.
All right. And why did the associates not want to buy this practice? Do we know that?
I only know that one didn't want to buy it because he hadn't been working long enough to feel like he could buy a practice with these high numbers. He didn't think he could make it. The other ones, don't know.
Okay. But again, doctors, those are one of the first questions you want to ask if there are associates in there. Why isn't the associate buying the practice?
Right.
Yeah, that's like the first question you want to ask if there's an associate in there. And then if there is if there's an associate in there, doctors, go on to the internet and see if they have an office 2 miles away.
Yes, we do check that.
Yep.
And so in 2022, he had 8 dentists on here and 9 hygienists. 2021, 7 dentists and 10 hygienists.
7 dentists. So that'd be a lot of part-time dentists, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah, they're all part-time.
Yeah.
Okay, now his procedures, where is he making the money?
All right. So we got a lot of composites, not a lot of crowns.
No.
Okay. So we go up a little bit, Stacy. I just want to see. So for all of 2021, let's see, so he's getting 25, 26 new patients, and he's doing about 35 crowns a month. But yeah, and again, my rule of thumb is 1 crown for every 4 to 5 composite restorations, give or take. So that's about right. He's got about 1,800 composites in 2021 versus about 400 crowns. So yeah, that looks reasonable to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, we also want to look at his fees. If he's fee for service, are his fees comparable to fees? There's a fee company that we use called I believe it's NDAS or NDAH. It's a fee service that takes fees all over the country, and you ask them for the zip code, and they'll tell you what the fees are. Do you look at the fee for service fees, Kathleen?
I do sometimes.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. You mean in the office or?
No, I mean what they're charging.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. In other words, are the fees low? In other words, in Orange County, California, a fee for service crown is somewhere in the $1,200 to $1,500 range. And again, a lot of it depends. Is it an implant crown? Is there a buildup? But just using that number, and if we see crowns on fee for service charged at $1,000, the other things I see doctors. I saw another one the other day, Kathleen, that they are under the opinion that they must use for their fee for service patients the Delta fee schedule. Have you seen that?
No.
I've seen that.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're saying the one that Delta sent to all the offices?
No, in other words, the fee for the doctor who has Delta patients, and say they're a premier, right? And
Yeah.
the doctor is under the impression that he or she has to use the fee schedule for Delta for their non-Delta out-of-network fee-for-service patients.
No.
I've seen that. But
that's crazy.
Yeah, well, I've seen it. I saw it the other day too. So anyway,
oh well,
you don't have to.
All right.
Okay. All right. So yeah. All right. So this looks like good. I mean, this looks like a good, solid, I think. Okay, let's see. Keep going. I'm liking what I'm seeing here.
Yep.
Okay. And again, remember, 2021 is only 5 or 6 months, I think, if I remember correctly. Okay. Yeah. All right. So insurance was 44.5% of collections. Now I thought, okay.
That's those are good numbers. I like to see insurance under 60%.
Right. Okay. All right. So what was your recommendation to this buyer?
Buy it.
Did he or she buy it?
Yes.
And how are they doing?
Good.
Okay. All right. You want to go to the last one?
Yeah.
We're really good on time. We got about 20 minutes left.
Okay. And I still have a couple more things on my PowerPoint. So
yes,
let's
absolutely.
try to get through this one quick.
Yeah, let's go through this one.
All right. So yeah, so this was done in January 2021. The reason for the sale, the doctor purchased a second practice 12.5 miles away. Date practice started with June. This practice was June 1st, 2005. Number of doctor days per week is 5. Open 3 Saturdays a month. Ortho is scheduled 2 days a month. Type of practice, cash, traditional, PPO, and Denti-cal. Okay, team, office manager, receptionist, and 2 dental assistants. 2 orthodontists, each working 1 day per week. Okay, and then we have our hygiene recall.
Okay.
And
So,
as you
they've
can
got
see,
they've got a really strong perio program.
yeah, they look at the root planning. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm saying that there's almost as many root planings as there are. Well, there's more root planings than adult prophies. My goodness.
but they're bringing very few patients back for perio maintenance.
Ah, okay. So that's an opportunity, right?
Oh, yes, for sure. So Dr. X is contracted PPO provider for all those companies and also contracted with Denti-cal.
Okay.
So we'll go down.
So it's a PPO heavy practice, 70-80% probably.
Yeah, but look at this now. Look at the receivables. 1,500,000.
So somebody's not doing their job at the front desk and
Well, we'll get down
wait. There's more to the story. Okay.
So over 90 days is 1,414,000. And the insurance receivable credit balances are 430.
Yikes.
I know. Insurance receivable 695 going back to 2015. Payments are never posted to the claims, so the insurance agent is not correct.
Right.
Co-payments are not collected all the time. The manager said if the patient cannot afford to pay, then they don't charge them a co-payment. Due to the high AR, it appears that they do not write it off. If you are not charging the copay, then you need to notify the insurance carrier on the claim that you billed that you wrote it off. That's the only way you could legally do it.
Okay.
And 2021, just 1 month, production was 76,000, collections was 46, but the bank deposits was 82.
Okay.
All right, now, the manager said the reason the bank deposits are higher than what is posted on the computer is that some of the deposits are checks from Delta Dental for claims they bill out of Reseda for the collections posted in January were 73%. So go down to the next one. Okay, here we go. So as you can see, the collections were 587, but the bank deposits for 11 months was 688. There was 344, approximately 29 patients per month, new patients. The collections posted were 69% of the net production. But again, part of the deposits is from the other office.
Okay, so there were 2 offices. So this guy owned an office 12.5 miles away.
Correct.
All right, so
And then-
that's immediately. Now, while 12.5 miles is better than 3 miles, if you're buying a practice and somebody's got an office, in my mind, 25 miles or less, you gotta be worried about this, Kathleen, because how many of those patients could go over to the other office?
I know, and I told the buyer that.
Yeah, and that to me is a big worry about people who own multiple offices and you are buying their lower producing offices.
Right.
And if their nearest office, if they own multiple offices and their nearest office is 30 miles away, I'm not as much worried as I am if it's 15 or
Oh, I agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
But
a big deal. That would be a big red flag for me.
But look at this again, too. You've got production of 1,419,000, adjustments 16,000, write-offs 319,000. The net production is 1,084,000, but they only collected 598,000.
So why is that? Did we figure that out?
I figured they're not collecting the copays.
Oh, did you? And did the seller admit to that?
I think I'm trying to remember what the manager told me. Let me look down here.
Well, and you could also, I think embezzlement too. I mean, could be. So doctors, the point is, these are the things you want to be looking at to see, because it's going to tell you a story.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
so-
as far as the deposits is because of the other office deposits were from Delta were posted there. But
Right,
again,
so, yeah,
they didn't admit that they were not charging the co-payments, but that big a difference,
yeah,
that's a very big difference.
That's
And
right, yeah.
again, they've already made a lot of adjustments, but still not low enough.
right, and, you know, we don't know. And then the question is, when I look at the overhead, Kathleen, are they commingling the expenses between the two offices for supplies and lab and employees? And I mean, there's all kinds of quagmires when you're buying from a doctor who owns multiple offices that are close to each other. They're just
Right,
a lot of uncertainties that we don't really, even with all the due diligence, you can't tell
right.
sometimes. So,
And again, I mean, they're collecting 50 to 55% of net production after adjustments.
okay. So we got about 13 minutes left, Kathleen. So
All right, so let's
kinda
get
go
down to
through-
the end.
Yeah, let's
And
go down
see,
to the end.
every year it's just crazy.
Yeah, can't recommend. You
And I-
said no.
Yeah. So let's go back to the PowerPoint.
Okay, so I'm assuming that this buyer did not buy this practice?
Oh, no.
Okay, good. And that's why you want to have a consultant like a Kathleen Johnson come in and give you the good better. All right, go ahead and let's
Next
finish this up.
slide. Okay. I always want to look too at new patient referral sources, patient referral insurance or advertising. Are they new patients or shoppers? Now, offices that do advertising for $59, x-rays, exam and cleaning, you're not going to get anything but shoppers.
Right.
So when you want to market, you market talking about your office and patient care and stuff like that, not a bargain. Okay, go to the next slide.
And one of the things, doctors, about your marketing is if the selling doctor doesn't do any social media, if they don't have a good website, that is something that you can change because that is where patients are looking. I've said this before. What's the #1 search engine in the world? Google. What's the
Yep.
#2 search engine, Kathleen? Who cares?
Yeah.
That's what it is. So if you're not have a great interactive website that works really well on a handheld, you're losing against the competition. So, okay.
Yes. All right, so now part of the due diligence, continued care recall system. Does the office have one? Are they good at pre-scheduling recalls? As we can see, hygiene is a problem in a lot of offices. Perio charting and non-surgical periodontal therapy treatment. Perio maintenance versus prophy. Is it okay to alternate codes? Now, some of the insurance companies will tell you the patient has 2 perio maintenance and 2 prophies a year. You can alternate. Or you can bill for both. You don't bill for prophy if you're doing perio maintenance. So you charge the patient the difference. So it's not okay to alternate codes.
Nope.
Next
You
one.
charge, you report on the insurance, the procedure you're doing and not a different procedure.
Right. All right, here's the other thing. A lot of doctors are not closing out or getting it closed out. So if you do not close out on a monthly basis, the accounts do not age properly. And it allows anyone to go back and make changes to production payments and adjustments. If you are chartless, then the documented treatment would not hold up in court. And the reason for that is you could go back and change it. So if you're chartless, you have to close out. Next one. All right, so you want to know the team, the position, salaries and benefits, associate, number of days and pay rate. Why isn't the associate interested in buying the practice? Hygienist, patient seen per day, number of days, pay rate by patient hourly or daily. And does the associate or hygienist have a bonus system? Next one. All right, your concerns. You're upset because the team hourly rates are too high. Hygienists are overpaid. The benefits are ridiculous. Can you afford to keep them? What effect will it have on the transition if you do not keep them? If you don't keep them, you're going to lose a lot of patients because they will think they didn't want to work for you. So you want to keep them through the transition. So go to the next slide.
Yeah.
Okay, Now you're ready to make a decision. You've got all the information. You need to know what a viable offer is, what contingencies you need to protect yourself, and how to protect your deposit in the event of something goes wrong. So you need a dental attorney to help with this. Next. All right, realizing your dream, the seller must terminate the team and you hire them.
Yep.
Transition letters go out. Assume your new role of owner, CEO, dentist. Do a team meeting with the introduction and a CV so the team knows a little bit more about you. Offer this team scripting to assist them with how to answer the phone and how to answer questions. Next one. Do not walk in the door and start making changes.
That might be the best thing you've said in the last 2 hours. Not that the other stuff wasn't really good, but this is huge.
It is.
All
right, go to the next slide.
You are a Yankee fan now.
Yes, I am. Okay. I'm not walking in the door, but once you get in through the transition, you want to make sure everybody has the title. You have an administrative assistant versus front office manager. I don't like the term office manager anymore because the office manager thinks you work for her. I'm not kidding you. It's changed.
I agree.
Yeah. So administrative assistant means she's your administrative assistant, but she has to go to you about things. Patient care financial coordinator, appointment coordinator, registered DA, dental assistant, or rover. If needed, team training. Next one. Financial protocol, written financials and courtesies. Hold daily huddles, review your schedule, know where to put an emergency patient. Right. Set monthly goals after the transition, not walking in the door. Next one. Monitor success monthly, new patients and referral source. Production, UCR versus net production. Adjustments by type is critical. Collections, 98% of net production. Accounts receivable, insurance, aging, and credit balances. You need to look at all that stuff. Next. Okay, review weekly, anticipated production for the next 2 weeks, hygiene recall statistics, treatment acceptance, patients not returning, and the reason. Next.
All right, so
know your keys to success.
So Kathleen, that was fantastic. So we got about 5 minutes left, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So I want to throw out just doctors. Let me just kind of give my thoughts. You give your thoughts, and we'll close this out. So sellers, the message to you is the following: bring a consultant into your office a year, 2 years before you're getting ready to sell. Look at what's going on. Look at where your weak points are. Do you have a weak perio program? Are you not posting everything you should be posting, so that when Kathleen comes into your practice on behalf of a buyer to look at it, they're going to say, wow, this doctor and this front office administrator and this team's got their act together. All right. I have a saying in my life, Kathleen, that is called "the truth will set you free." And we want to be honest, honest, honest. And sellers, I'm going to give you advice with buyers on the phone. When you sell your practice, you want to keep a log of what is going on, because if that buyer starts doing things to your really good practice that that are going to be destructive of that practice, you want to, I mean, as much as you hear about it, if you're there and employees call you, so that if God forbid they come back and say, oh, well, you sold me a bill of goods, but the reality is that they made all the mistakes, you've got the documentation. It's buyer beware, actually, but it's also to some extent seller beware. And buyers, Kathleen's comment about not making changes. When you walk in, I'm going to give you a couple of verbal skills, and then Kathleen, I'll give you a minute to make your final comments. Okay. So number one, when you come in and meet the team, you want to bring cookies or pastries or whatever you're going to bring. And it is absolutely the Johnson & Johnson commercial. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. So the first thing you want to, in my opinion, that you want to say to these team members is say, Guys, I've been looking forward to meeting you for many, many weeks. I'm honored and humbled to take over Dr. Johnson's practice. And I want to let you know, this is my opinion now, Art Wiedemann's opinion, that the number one thing you want to tell them right off the bat is, team, my number one mission in life is to provide world-class care to our patients and to make sure that their total health is as good as it can be. If you start off with that to that team, you have a great chance of winning them over. If you walk in there and say, okay, well, we're going to put in digital x-ray, and we're going to change this, and we're going to get rid of the insurances, that team is going to say, wait a minute. All right. So the other thing, the other verbal skill that I like, and you want to, and we've actually, Kathleen, brought you into practices for buyers where you will come in, right, either when the transition happens or before, if the team finds out about it.
Right.
And here's the conversation, then I'm going to let you give your final comments. So Mrs. Smith calls, wait a minute, I just got this letter from the doctor. What is going on? He's retired. What's going on? And here's my verbal skill, Kathleen. Well, Mrs. Jones, it was kind of a shock to us. We knew this day was coming. Doctor is of retirement age. But I am so excited to tell you, and we will miss Doctor, but I am so excited for you to meet Dr. Williams or Dr. Johnson, okay? We have met him. We have immediately fallen in love with him. He is as good as it gets. And by the way, he's got an opening at 10 o'clock on Tuesday. If you have a minute, I want you to come and meet him. If that front office does that, as opposed to when the patient calls and says, well, how's the new doctor? And I have heard stories of the front office saying, well, he's okay. Disaster. So Kathleen, let's make your final comments. And guys, if you need someone to help you with your due diligence or someone to get your office ready for sale, give Kathleen a call. If you have questions about, selling a practice, buying a practice, we help with all that stuff. Give me a call. Final comments, Kathleen.
First of all, I promise I won't wear a Yankee shirt.
All right. Well,
all right.
Maybe.
My final comments are, doctor, you need to be more involved when you're buying a practice in part of the due diligence. Even if you hire me or another consultant to help you, you still have your job to do. And what I do with my clients, I give you an outline of what to look at so that you know what you should be looking at in the charts and everything. But again, what Art just said, you never walk in the door and make changes. Because if you do, the next thing the patient is going to say is, what is he or she going to change next? Or am I paying for it? Like I had a doctor one time wanted to redo the whole office because it was like 1950s. And he said, I'm going to come in and I'm going to do this, do that, do the other. And I turned around, looked at him and said, you're doing nothing. He goes, what? I said, if you start making changes, patients think they're paying for it. And what are you going to change next? And it was so funny because after 6 months, he called me up and goes, can I make my changes now? I said, now you can. But anyway, it's very, very important to be very thorough in doing an evaluation before you purchase a practice and letting the broker know what kind of practice you're looking for. So you can tell the broker, this is the kind of practice I'm looking for. Let's say you want just PPO at the most, but no HMO or no Medi-cal. You don't want them sending you information on those. So be very upfront and let them know what you want. Was there any questions for us?
Yeah, we didn't get any, but we covered a lot of ground here. And folks, I want to thank you for the honor and privilege of your time. Be aware if you want to watch this again and maybe revisit some of these things, you will be getting a link. Stacy, I think we get a link in the probably sometime next week. They'll get the link to look at this. It'll be on our page, on our YouTube page.
Yeah,
and
so it's about a week from now.
About a week from now.
Okay.
And Stacy, thank you so much for all your help.
Yes, thank you, Stacy.
And folks, this is the last webinar we're going to do this year. We're going to have more stuff for you. We're very excited about. We've got some things in the works. You'll be hearing from us. If I can be of any help, if we at Eide Bailey can be of any help to you on anything, accounting, tax, if you're looking at selling a practice, you're looking to buy a practice, give me a call. We'll talk about it. If you're looking at evaluating a practice and buying one, Kathleen has done 1,000 or more of these. She's as good as it gets. So with that, Kathleen, my dear Yankee fan friend, thank you for your friendship over the years.
I want to say one more thing.
Yeah.
Even though Art likes to pick on me because I'm a Yankee fan, I recommend Art to a lot of clients.
Well, you're very
Because
kind.
whether you're buying a practice or need an accountant or whatever, he's excellent.
Well, you're very, very kind. Thank you. And doctors, with that, we'll call it a webinar. Thank you for attending. And we look forward to seeing you and hearing you down the road. We'll be at CDA this year. Come say hi. I'm speaking all over the place, so I hope to see you. And have a wonderful weekend. Stay dry on Sunday here in Southern California. It's going to rain. And Kathleen, thank you. Stacy, thank you. And we'll see you. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye,
Thank
everyone.
you. Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye.